started, my name is Courtney Adams. I work for the NORA Project as the Director of Life Cycle and Community Programs, which is kind of a fancy way of also saying that I am the Director of the Primer Pack programs, even though it's not in that title. But I am the person who deals most directly with the curriculum and also with our wonderful teachers. So I'm really happy that you're here to join us tonight. And I'm here with a fellow TNP teammate, as well as one of our beloved teachers. So I want you both introduce yourself for a moment. Oh, and I apologize. I am sitting in my living room. I'm wearing a purple NORA Project shirt and I have blonde hair.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janie Avant. I am the inclusion specialist for the NORA Project and was a teacher in the NORA Project program, actually the first teacher outside Chicago. We did it at our school here in Georgia in 2017 was the first year. And I am wearing a peach colored NORA Project shirt and I'm sitting in my basement / office. And you can see my display of mini bats from all the baseball stadiums we've been to, and my son's collection of trophies behind me for Special Olympics.
I am Heather Pearl. I'm wearing a black shirt because I think my kids stole my NORA shirt actually to sleep in. I'm sitting in my family room with a window behind me. I am the director or administrator at a preschool in Madison, Wisconsin. Well, my preschool's in Verona. I'm in Madison. And so we are in our second year of implementing the NORA Project for our very youngest learners.
Yes, and thank you both for being here very much. So to just kind of give a brief overview, Katie definitely touched on this, and we want this to be relatively informal. So at any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Additionally, Janie, if you wouldn't mind dropping the caption link in the chat as well as the agenda, that would be awesome. So if there's any questions you have along the way, please feel free to drop them in there. Some of you are familiar faces and probably know a decent amount about the NORA Project. And one of the things that you might know about it is that the NORA Project is very beloved for the fact that it really digs deeply into the curriculum, into the topics that we're teaching our kids. In a moment, I'll dig a little bit deeper into what the Primer Pack actually is and what it looks like and who it's for, and why it's so wonderful. But just generally with all of our programs, including the Primer Pack, these lessons really go way beyond the surface level. There's a lot of teachers who, myself included, taught a lot of social emotional learning curriculums that, wanted to cover every single standard possible for the state or for CASEL. And in doing so, just kind of missed the mark and skimmed the surface. And with the NORA Project, that learning really goes deep. It gives kids an opportunity to own that learning and really reinforce it over the course of the week and throughout the year. And ideally, as part of the life cycle of programs, students who start with the Primer Pack and potentially go on to the Storyteller program or eventually the STEMpathy Club down the line when they're in middle school have had years and years and years to reinforce this inclusive behavior and to learn about disability and empathy and inclusion and so many other things. One of the things that Katie touched on quite a bit in talking about the teacher quotes, and something that you'll hear a little bit more in this session, is that one of the things that's really special about the lessons themselves is it's not only teaching students concepts and facts or doing read alouds and then moving on. It's really been proven, but Katie showed those graphs, to create a positive and responsive classroom community. So many people who teach these lessons say that there's honestly not even a ton of need to do a ton of other classroom curriculum building activities, because the lessons are structured to give you that time to really dig deep and connect with your class. And that's something that so many of our teachers are so good at anyways, but these lessons are just like a natural vehicle to bring into your classroom to enhance those relationships, not only between student and teacher, but also between the students in your classroom, regardless of ability. And something that you'll hear more about with the NORA Project is one of the things that we're trying really hard in our programs, both in the Primer Pack and across our whole life cycle suite, is helping kids to develop an ability inclusive mindset. And that's something that's really unique to our curriculum. And again, versus, curriculum like a second step or something where kids are learning how to, be a good friend, or they're learning how to do conflict resolution. Our curriculum does that and so much more. And then I think finally what you'll hear in Heather and Janie's stories and other people who know the organization is when you're joining the NORA project, it's not just getting sent your curriculum materials and saying good luck. It's really becoming part of we call it a family, and it sounds, really overused, but it really is a community, and not only of other educators, but also of the staff members and everybody who's there with you along the way doing this learning. Janie or Heather, anything that you'd feel to add at this point? Okay, so the Primer Pack is our curriculum for our youngest learners. So currently we have the Primer Pack in a few different levels to make sure that it is adjusted to the age appropriateness for the students in your grade level. So currently we are piloting, and we'll have in full effect next year, Primer Pack for preschool. So currently Heather is working with her teachers and her staff to give us feedback on those lessons that we are writing this year, and it will be in full effect for next year. So we will have a preschool version of the Primer Pack curriculum. Heather is doing that with 3 and 4-year-olds currently in her school right now. Again, we work with every school to make sure it's a good fit. So that's just something to keep in mind. We also have Primer Pack, which we call level 1, which is for kindergarten and first grade students. So again, the difference being is that there are different read alouds. There are even some different lessons. There are fundamental differences in how the lessons are taught. A lot of the major concepts are the same, like our outcomes are structured with the same learning outcomes for each of the 3 different versions of our curriculum. But again, it's just scaled and scaffolded to make sure it's age appropriate for the learners in that bandwidth. And then the final Primer Pack curriculum is our level 2 curriculum, which is for our 2nd and 3rd grade learners. So again, if you are to sign up for the Primer Pack, you would definitely sign up and be given the curriculum materials for the level that fits the needs of your students. So when I keep saying, when you're given the Primer Pack and when you start the Primer Pack, what that really is a really comprehensive year-long social emotional learning curriculum. There are 38 weekly lesson plans that include a lot. They include read alouds, they include comprehensive teacher talking points, they include discussion questions, they include worksheets, videos, and everything in between that you would need to have a dynamic and engaging lesson with your students. The lessons themselves are very, very low prep. Our teachers, again, it's one thing for us to say that, but our teachers consistently reinforce that for us, that, SEL, unfortunately, is not always given the appropriate amount of time in the day that it deserves. And the good news is that this is something that you're not going to be pulling your hair out over, trying to make 80 billion copies and trying to figure out how to teach it, 10 seconds before you're teaching your lesson. So they're ready to go 20 to 30 minutes, depending on what age group and what lesson. And again, they're very flexible. So the lessons themselves are easily adaptable. The activities are adaptable. They're also accessible and inclusive to students of all abilities, easily to differentiate within the students in your classroom. And just on the macro level, this is obviously skimming over a ton, but the big ideas are that students are learning about emotional literacy and regulation. They're then turning that emotional literacy outward and learning about the feelings of others and learning about empathy and how to display that to those that they meet, whether that person is similar or might appear different from them. They're learning about friendship skills and how to be an includer. They're learning problem-solving strategies along the way and conflict resolution. And importantly, what sets us apart, as some of you know on this call, is that it's also teaching students about disability as a part of human diversity. And we're really proud of our 4th outcome of the Primer Pack curriculum, which really digs deep into demystifying disability and teaching kids all that they would need to know about having, respectful interactions with their peers who may have disabilities or not. And just, again, understanding that disability is just a form of human diversity that we should learn about like anything else. And Janie?
Courtney, if I could add some information.
Oh, of course, please do.
When the Primer Pack was first developed by Courtney, it was developed for in-person, in-class learning.
Thank
And
you.
so the materials that were provided were your typical lesson plan format. And at the time we were providing sets of books and materials, those kinds of things. So you would get a primer pack kit for your classroom or your school. And then of course, last March, the world turned upside down, and Courtney very quickly, the whole TMP team pivoted to reconstruct these lessons with the same outcomes, the same learning outcomes, but designed for virtual learning. And some of the comments that I've received from one of the classrooms or one of the schools that I support here in Georgia, the entire kindergarten level and the entire second grade level are doing the primer pack this year. And they've commented over and over, the teachers, about how flexible the lessons are, how easy they are to get to, and that everything you need is right there. You're not searching for a read aloud or a video or something to go along with your lesson, which has taken a huge load off. And I'm sure those of you who are classroom teachers, you know, it's just been a crazy year trying to convert everything. And so a lot of the teachers have said how grateful they are that we were able to convert everything to online learning as much as we can to keep it in line with our curriculum goals. So you do have the option if you are lucky enough to be in a private school like Rena. And I guess, Heather, are you in person?
Yeah, we've been in person. Well, we weren't last year, but we are now. So
now, so you've got both formats available to you. You've got the format that's the more traditional one, but then if you are still teaching virtually, then you've got that option as well.
Yeah. And honestly, just being a former classroom teacher, you know, even having those remote materials, whether you technically need them all or not, is kind of a nice option. You have the lessons recorded, you have the read alouds recorded. And obviously there's so much authenticity in teaching those lessons yourself if you are in person, but it's also just a nice resource for teachers to have all of that at their disposal, whether they are in person or they're remote or a mixed version. Sorry to interrupt you, Heather.
That's okay. I just wanted to add on the lesson plans, just from using them, I've never seen a curriculum written so well in any of the things I've looked at or purchased. It's all so laid out. It tells you how long it's going to take. It tells you all the materials you're going to need. It's just so well done that I always joke about, I feel like my husband could pull a lesson out and, you know, be able to maybe at least do some justice with it. So I just wanted to add on that. And they are super flexible. What I really like about the lessons is it tells you ways to adapt it for younger learners or higher level. And then there's parent resources sometimes that you can kind of send out. My teachers use that as a tidbit for newsletters and stuff. So it really requires no prep at all. Like Courtney said, it's all laid out so beautifully.
Thank you. And one of the things that we're really proud about too, with the primer pack and also our other curriculums, is that instead of just, again, no matter how wonderful the resources are, which is great that they, you know, are so well laid out, but we also are there to support you along the way. And, you know, for many teachers, especially with this curriculum, if it is easy to use, then they're able to adapt it how they need it to be and how they want it to be with their learners, then that's fine. And we won't hear from them for a while, and they do great, and they, you know, share their feedback here and there. But there are teachers where circumstances arise, or there are things that they might need support with, or they have a learner who needs an accommodation and they're not sure how to help that student. And that's where the NORA project really comes in. We have a comprehensive summer training program where we used to be in person, and now we've moved it to an online format over the summer, where we bring in speakers and we have program trainings. And it's just really, really comprehensive in teaching adults about the concepts behind our lessons and why they're so important. I know several of us on here have been at those summer, you know, trainings, and they consistently are given feedback that it's just above and beyond a normal, you know, teacher PD program. It's, you know, run by teachers for teachers. And on top of that, you also have access at any time to a program coach, as well as our inclusion specialist, Dr. Janie. So we're always there to make your life easier and help you adapt resources in whatever way you might need. Does anybody have any questions at this point? No
Can I ask
pressure.
a question?
Yeah, of course, Rena.
So I am newly in the inclusion coordinator field, and I'm trying to really get this into like all of the JCC preschools. And my question is, so like a lot of times when you bring anything to educators, they're like, well, I've been doing this for,
Mhm.
I've been teaching for, 30 something years. Like I do this all the time in my classroom. Or
Right.
like we are in a lot of our preschools are like Reggio Emilia style classrooms. And so we don't really go by like we go by a lesson plan, but we don't go by like curriculum. We go by, emergent curriculum. And so whatever the kids are interested in, we follow their lead.
Mhm.
And so how would you, like, if I'm trying to like sell the NORA project to, our leadership team and say this, we need to have this in our school, and like this is what we're doing anyway in our classrooms, but
Mhm.
this will help, you know, implement the skills in a more like foundational way.
Mhm.
How do I like work that in with already that we're like, we have this different way of teaching that isn't a curriculum based, like we're not a curriculum based community center.
Courtney, can I jump in on that
Yeah,
one?
I saw Heather like shaking her head like vehemently. So yeah, absolutely. And I'll chime in if there's anything to add, Heather.
Yeah. So we don't have a curriculum, like a set curriculum that we use either, and we're play-based. So we, what I actually love about the NORA project is it gives some guidance on that social emotional, because yes, we think we're doing it. But I think because we don't have a curriculum, like it's not always intentional. And so I would say like the NORA project is a great way to be intentional on how we are teaching these things. I also think that the disability part of it is something that, you just don't see in other curriculums. But like even our preschoolers go home talking about empathy, and they use that word and teach parents. And so like and I feel like at the preschool level, right, like a lot of our job is to educate families as well on these things. And so we kind of use it as like a family outreach as well. So connecting families and kids and all of that. So I'd be happy to talk to you more about at a preschool level too. So.
Yeah, Heather, thank you so much. And I think I would have essentially used the same. You took the words out of my mouth. But I think the big thing to highlight too, Rena, is again, the intentionality. Like, obviously that's the point of having, like in preschool, not having those, intentional learning standards where kids will have years and years and years to do that. And that's why preschool is so wonderful. But that being said, teaching about disability, unfortunately, in our current world, it requires some intentionality. Like a lot of the books that we have in our libraries, and obviously Rena, in like your position, you're doing such a great job to make sure that's not the case. But in so many schools, that isn't the case. We need to make sure that we're providing students with representation, and we're giving teachers who may not feel super comfortable the learning points and the ideas and the rationale behind it to teach it and to teach it well. And again, I think too, where we hear a lot of teachers, there are parts of the lessons where there are scripts provided, but I wouldn't say it's a fully scripted curriculum. And so I think what's cool about it is you could look at the curriculum and see what's there in an outcome. And again, you might be able to find like on a given day that someone, you're interested in teaching a particular topic. So you pull out, a certain activity or a read aloud or something of that sort to go a little bit more organic. And that's totally fine on our end too.
Yeah. And then for the preschool level, it really isn't. Like, I think my teachers like introduce it once a week, and then they kind of work it into like play. So it's not like curriculum, like you think like, hours and hours, because we're just a half day program too. So we adapt it. So it's super adaptable, and they always work with you to like make it work the best. But I mean, it's super easy just to kind of implement without what you're already doing.
Yeah, and Rena, happy to continue this further with you and be a brainstorming partner with you, and obviously could pull Heather in too because she has some experience with that. Mara, did you have a question?
I actually was gonna comment, and I
Okay.
know I'm like this random person here.
Oh.
So I am a former teacher. I taught kindergarten for 12 years, and now I plan programming for young families in the Chicago suburbs. But what I was gonna say to Rena is because I know exactly those teachers, and I feel like when you've been teaching for 20, 30 years and something new, you're like, I've already done that. I know what I'm doing, you know. But I think to say to teachers, this is going to give you the exact verbiage that you need, and you're going to have it in front of you. And teaching is a continuous learning process. I also think, I was thinking about teachers that maybe started teaching in oh my gosh, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but like 1990, okay? Feel old. But like we treat the world very differently now than we did then. And when you're talking about a fully inclusive classroom where children are not necessarily being pulled out because of different disabilities or learning styles, I think it's so important to have that language, to have that curriculum. And when you say it to teachers like that, I think it makes it more understanding and appropriate.
Okay, I think you and I need to have a conversation because I know where you work and you know where I work, and we have to have a conversation after this.
Oh, good. Then this was a success all around. And thank you, Mara. First of all, nice to meet you. And thank you. That was really well said.
You too.
Mara, I have to tag on to your, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying 1990. I just retired in 2019 after 40 years in the classroom. So my first year of teaching was 1979. So it was very, very different then from what it is now.
And Janie loves the Nora project, and she was,
I do.
She had been teaching for a long time. So, and we do hear that, Rena. So again, if you need, any more backup, bringing it to your administrators, let us know. Cause again, we've had a lot of teachers who have felt that way and have done it and changed their mind for sure. And just for the sake of, getting through our couple of slides, this was just kind of the last part of the presentation, was just hearing stories from the classroom. And we obviously covered some stories from the classroom and some anecdotes. And I just wanted to briefly read this quote that is on the screen from one of our teachers who shared this with us. My biggest takeaway as a teacher is being reminded that I can make a difference in the world by being a part of the Nora Project. As an educator of young children, I have a responsibility to teach about disability pride and help educate society about the contributions that all individuals bring to society. So on that note, at this point, I kind of just wanted to hear from, oh, sorry, my screen is doing its own things, from Heather or and Janie or anyone who has any, brief anecdotes to add on to what the ones we've already shared about what it actually like to teach the lessons. And Rena, maybe this could be some more, ammo for going in, strong with, reasons why, even experienced teachers could benefit from, the community building and also a little structure and some of the learning points that are offered in the primer pack.
Yeah, I can kind of talk on that too. We're talking a lot nowadays too about how we're all different and no one looks the same and all that. And so the curriculum actually follows that also, like diversity and how, we all have different abilities. So it kind of, I feel like it touches a lot of that too. So I just wanted to share a little note that I got from a parent. They read the book, We're Different, We're the Same. It's a Sesame Street book that comes with the Nora Project curriculum. And the parent said, the book was the first thing he talked about today. He was asking me all sorts of questions, like, would it be good if the rainbow was the same color or if we were the same? It was so cute. And he still talks about examples of how he is trying to use empathy. So I just thought that was so cool that like a 3-year-old is going home and like, these are the notes that we're getting from parents and we get them often. My staff, I think, was a little more reserved about doing it at first too, just because it was new. But I went in with it super passionate about it. And so like, I can tell that my passion has rubbed off on them because I even was like, we're doing it next year, right? And they both were like, yeah, and so I think this is like the first year that they were like not hesitant at all. So they really do get a hang of it, especially the more you teach it, the more familiar you are with it, and the more you can kind of do it, adapt it to what works with your class or what works, with your style. But I do think it's super flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. We've even, again, part of my job is talking with the teachers who are actually teaching the lessons and offering support in the ways that they need. And I've heard teachers of all different levels of the primer pack just making it work for the students they have and with the time that they're given. And as some of our teachers, that the reality is, and they really want to bring it to their school, and their administrators say, well, we don't really have the time for this. Like, we already have this SEL program and we don't have the minutes in our instructional time to give to it. And, I've seen teachers be super creative, and the general overwhelming feedback is they are super adaptable, and it's very, very easy in the way it's structured is also allows you just to pick and choose parts if that is what works for you for the day, and you can only get to the read aloud or the video or the activity, then that's fine. And the rationale is there for the teachers to understand why, and the talking points behind it in case you need them. And I think that's really cool. I mean, I've also heard teachers who do it as we have it's not just teachers. Sometimes we have social workers or counselors or other professionals who teach the lessons. And so I've heard people do lunch bunches with the lessons and use that as their curriculum. And so again, we have done it in Montessori schools, in private, public, and everything in between. And I think everyone, once you get it in the door, realizes that there's a ton of value there. And again, where our curriculum really stands out is in that fourth outcome. There are 4 total outcomes. And by the end of the year, really explicitly teaching children about disability as a form of human diversity, and really giving kids the chance to learn how to ask respectful questions and interact with their, people that they meet that have disabilities. It's something that's really not offered in any other curriculum and in so many of our schools in general. And so that's just really one of a kind.
Yeah, and Courtney, I would say too, though, like beyond the 4th outcome, you guys really stand out because, like, even using the word empathy, like that's not in other social emotional like curriculums. I was gonna say our experience, we actually did it this is our 2nd year. So last year we started it and there was not a preschool level. And so we kind of adapted it and we were able to, but in that, Courtney and I chatted a lot and I was like, it's just not right. And now that led to other things. So
it led to us writing a new curriculum. So we're really flexible.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. Like, Courtney's always around. I like texted her today and I was like, so anyone at the Nora Project is super, they get back to you right away. They do feel like a family, and you just feel supported no matter what level you're at or your teachers are at.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, I enjoy the emails and the texts are just kind of the best part. And I'm sorry that we didn't leave a ton of time for questions. Obviously we had a couple earlier and that was, awesome. But if anyone has any questions to close us out before we head back to the other session, feel free. And if not, totally fair. That's actually probably a good sign. Just to draw your attention to it, on our website, there is a list of frequently asked questions. So maybe it's something that didn't come to mind, or maybe now you're looking at it and you're like, oh shoot, I have that question and there's only 1 minute left. But these are just a few of the frequently asked questions that we get at the Nora Project, and the answers are all available on our website. So if you go to our website and you go to the top menu, I believe it's under sign up and FAQs. And there is a list of questions and answers that maybe will cross your mind at some point as you think about what you already know about the Nora Project and what you learned tonight. And just thank you for being here with us.